Okay, I'm back with another video based around service, and this time a bit of a favourite of mine, and we're going to look at using some different props when we're training with service. I'm a big fan of using different things, implements, items, and it doesn't have to be cones like this, it can be anything that you've got around the house or at your club. But using props like this is a great way to isolate some of the skills that we're trying to work on. For example, if you're trying to develop your serve whilst playing an exercise, it's very easy to be distracted by where to recover or how people are returning and how you're going to follow up. So by working just in isolation, using the cones to try and focus on the spin that you're trying to create or the accuracy that you're starting to develop, is a great way to really hone in on that specific skill. Okay, so here we're going to look at how we can use these props to help benefit the amount of spin, but also the understanding of spin that we're trying to create. Okay, so this first one that I've set up, I've just tried to keep the cones in a line behind each other, and the gap, it's probably about that wide, so there's plenty of room for the ball to go through that. A common thing here is that is a lot of side spin that we're trying to create to get the ball through that gap. And again, by working through this process, we can understand actually how we need to contact the ball, what types of spin that we need to try and impart to create this effect that we've put on the table. Okay, so if I just go for side spin, let's take a look and see what happens. So I'm going to open my bat as wide as I can, try and contact the side of the ball here and see if I can get the ball going through the cones. So I can get the ball through, but I'm relying a lot on my accuracy of aiming towards the cones. Okay, if I want to be able to do that consistently, instead of going for just side spin, I need to use a lot more backspin with a little bit of side spin. Rather than aiming at the cones, I'm going to aim away from the cones, and then that leaves a lot more opportunity for the ball to travel through. So this time I'm not hitting the side, now I'm much flatter. So this is my flat bat, and then I'm just creating a small angle here. If I can keep that angle all the way through, then I have a chance of getting through the cones there. Okay, so it's having much more focus on creating a little bit more backspin to create this effect. Okay, so that gives me a real understanding of the weight of the serve, how thick or thin I need to contact it, how I'm delivering the ball into my side to be able to control the ball for what I've set there. Okay, so now I've just adapted the cones slightly. So now instead of going through the cones sideways, I want to go down past the orange cone and then for the ball to come back through in between the two cones. So now I'm sure you've all guessed I need much more backspin with just a small trace of side spin to help try and get through the cones. So this time my bat is very, very flat, and then just a very small angle that I'm trying to create. And again, if I can keep that angle all the way through the shot, I have a chance of creating that. Okay, and then I want to try and put it into kind of a more realistic serve that I would use. So now I'm going to go down into my normal service position. Imagine that I'm in a match play scenario, and then I'm trying to execute the same skill. And again, it's just a real good opportunity for me to exaggerate the amount of spin I can create, the amount of control that I've got. Maybe this in a match scenario, I'm serving very short. Sometimes that's going to work very well against some people and not so well against others. But do I have the control to be able to do that? Okay, I can always place the cones deeper and try and get those two bounces and get the ball to curl towards the back of the court. But I'm trying to place them in lots of different areas to really test and improve my skill and control. Now I've just changed the cones again. They're a little bit more in front of each other. There's a slightly bigger gap. And this time I'm trying to focus more on creating topspin. Now when I create side spin and topspin, the ball doesn't quite move to the side as much. So I need to set the cones up in a way that allows me to use my control on the topspin, but still create some sort of arc. So if I set them too extreme, but I'm going for my side spin, topspin, you can see the ball doesn't move too much to the side. So I need to put the angle of the cones much closer together to test that skill. Okay, so important not to neglect that one. It's very easy to go for the backspin ones and the side spin ones because we get to see these big effects. But don't forget those little topspin variations as well. And again, I'm working on the same thing. I'm working on my accuracy, my spin, and my control all at the same time. Okay, some other ways that you might use them. You can just use one cone. And here I've just tried to section off part of the table. So I'm trying to aim really wide. Yeah, how wide can I get my serve? And the gap I'm aiming for is between the cone and the net. So quite an extreme serve. But again, do I have the control and understanding to be able to get the ball super wide? And yes, like any serve, there's pros and cons to it. People will say here, can't people hit the ball around the net, or you're giving them an opportunity to attack. And of course, if you're doing that serve all of the time, they're going to get used to it and they'll probably take advantage of it. No different to you serving the same serve somewhere else all of the time. They're going to get used to it. For me, throwing this one in as a bit of variety, it's very rare that people are in that position. They don't tend to have the control to be able to deal with the response that's required. So if you have the skill to be able to serve really wide, it's a great way of exploiting people that haven't been in that position before. Maybe people at a higher level have been, and they do have the skill to hit the ball around the net. But in our leagues and regional competitions and things at that level, maybe players aren't quite as experienced to deal with those extreme serves. So it's worth giving it a try. It might be a serve that you add to your arsenal of serves. So the larger cones can sometimes be a little bit of an easier visual. So if you're a younger player or you're working with younger players, it might make the task a little bit more obvious as to what they're doing. And when you're doing this, sometimes it's very easy to hit the ball a little bit high, which is fine when you're learning and you're starting to understand the spins. That's always something you can correct afterwards. But with the smaller cones, sometimes the bounce can go over the cones and it's not clear whether they've gone through or not. So sometimes these bigger cones come in handy for just having a clear understanding as to whether you've achieved the task or not. So this time I've set them up in a way to try and test my backhand serve. Okay, so the same principle. There's a lot of sidewards movement there, but if I go for just side spin, I can just about get it through, but it's very difficult. And again, yeah, the ball wants to travel much more forwards. So I need to flatten my bat, I need a lot more backspin, and I need to aim more away from the cones first. Okay, so just make sure you're using cones for different service techniques as well. Okay, so this time I've put the cone on its side and I've put it more into the corner. I'm going to test myself on my long fast serve this time. So rather than trying to spin through cones, this time I'm trying to use it for a little bit of accuracy. Okay, by having the cone lying down, there's a big void that's facing me. So I've got a good indication as to whether I would be hitting the table or not. If I was to stand the cone up tall and put it here, sometimes what will happen is people might serve long. They'll hit the top of the cone and think they've achieved it, but in reality, the ball would miss off the end. Okay, so just by lying it down and it's set into the table a little bit, even if I'm hitting this top part here, there's a good chance that I'm going to be hitting the table, the back of the table. Okay, so you can also use cones and props for accuracy and not only spin. Yeah, there's lots of purposes that you can use them for. So service practice can be boring and a bit tedious for some people. And I would also find it boring as well if my coach said to me, here's 200 balls, spend 20 minutes just serving. When there's no thought, there's no engagement, I'm just working through a technique just with pure repetition. It's very hard to concentrate, it's very hard to improve because there is no thought, and we need thought to be able to make those improvements. So by using props and setting agendas for yourself or for the players that you're working with, that creates thought, consideration, understanding, and it sets tasks that maybe they can't do yet and they have to learn how to do. Okay, so it's a great way of engaging players, and it's a great way to improve players, and it's a great way of understanding progress as well. If they go from not being able to get any through the cones to being able to get 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, they're able to understand progress. And then over time, if you're setting the same task once per week, 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, you're able to track the improvements that you're making. Okay, so do you use props? If not, get some props. If you do already use things like this, what do you use? What do you use them for? Do you set them up different to me? Do you use something else other than cones? Let me know in the comments what you use. Okay, thank you once again for watching. I hope you found it useful, and see you at the next one.